going to tell you about my experience working at Victoria's Secret. And I know that this is probably very saturated and overdone, but this is a long story that's been a long time coming, and I really hope that you enjoyed it as I tell it, and I really hope that if you feel angry about what happened, that you channel your rage in a healthy way and you don't rob a 7-Eleven, because that would be bad. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna just do my makeup while I chat with you just because I need to get ready to go. But hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Hopefully this turns out as good as I'm expecting. So I want to talk to you today about obviously what you can see in the title and the description box. I used to work at Victoria's Secret, and I wasn't necessarily a VS girl, I was more of a pink girl. For those of you who don't know, pink and Victoria's Secret are the same essentially, except pink is more aimed at girls in like junior high, high school, college type ages. I guess they called it their target market. And so I was a pink girl. I got the job at Victoria's Secret when I was trying to figure this out today, and I could not figure it out to save my life. I'm pretty sure that I was 17 because I was in college when I got that job, and I was going to college. I was doing Victoria's Secret part-time, and I was also working at a dealership. And no, that was before the dealership. I was also working at Michael's. Correction, I was working at Michael's, not the dealership. So essentially I got this job when the store had only been opened, I think, like for 4 months in that particular mall. From where I live in Canada, and when that particular store had opened, it was only the second store in the entire city, and I think like one of the only stores in Canada at that point. And it was a connected store, so we had the big Victoria's Secret store, and then connected to it was Pink. They were separated by a wall, but obviously there was a doorway cut out of the wall, so you could go into Victoria's Secret and Pink and back and forth, whatever you wanted to do. So it's pretty fancy. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it fancy, but it wasn't like anything we'd ever seen here before. Like we'd always dreamed about it because the Americans had everything. We never got anything that cool until then, and it was great. I dropped off my resume, and then before I could even get home, I had a voicemail on my phone asking to set up an interview, and I set up an interview with the HR lady. Well, I don't know if she was HR per se, but I'm pretty sure she was, and she did all the scheduling and everything like that, and she did all the hiring. Her name was Michelle. She was so sweet. I loved her. I wish she had done something else other than that, because I never got to see her other than when I needed to request time off or change my schedule, or when I had questions about the scheduling. That was the only time I ever saw her, was for those things, and she was just an absolute doll. I loved working with her. She was amazing. So she hired me. We did my orientation or whatever, and I loved it there. I was the oldest girl on the team. I remember that much, and I made more money than anybody else on the team on either the Pink or the Victoria's Secret side. I was making $12 an hour, which back then was a lot of money because I think minimum wage was $10.40 an hour at that time. Yeah, pretty amazing. And at the time as well, I believe that I was one of the only Pink girls that they had. I think there were only 2 other Pink girls, and I was the oldest on all of the team for VS and Pink, like I said. And the 2 girls that I was working with, I think one of them was 16 and the other one was 17, and I'm pretty sure that I was 17 or 18. I have to do the math and like look at the numbers, but I was the oldest girl on the team, I know that much. And I was there until I was about 20. So I was there for 3 years. So I was there, I was 17 to 20. So I was there for a little while, and I ended up really enjoying it there. I really liked the discounts. At the time, we did not have commission, and your sales didn't determine how many hours you got or anything like that. There was no commission whatsoever. Obviously, we had goals every day, and every couple of hours we would have what was called going green, so we would reach our goal or whatever, and it was just this big toot and cahoodle. And I guess from what I remember, the opening girls had almost like a competition going on with the closing girls to see who could go green the most and the most times in a row and all of that fancy stuff. Usually going green was not something that was possible unless it was like a holiday and it was busy as hell, or if it was like semi-annual sale, which in itself was a nightmare. I'll tell you all about it. So I get this job and it's awesome. You get all kinds of discounts. You get, for the first little bit, they give you big discounts to make sure that you are wearing their product. Like in the Pink department particularly, they wanted you to wear everything that was from Pink, and if it was not from Pink, it could not have any like labels on it of any sort. Like you couldn't wear a band t-shirt or a t-shirt that said I love my mom. Like it couldn't say anything on it. It had to be very plain, and you could not wear jeans unless you were asked to during Stampede. So a lot of the time I got to wear pretty much pajamas to work. It was great. I loved it. At that age, put me in pajamas and send me to work and I will gladly go to work looking like that. So I loved it, and I got along at first with absolutely everybody on my team. We had a really good working relationship. The managers were really friendly and they were really open to not criticizing you, but telling you things that you can do to improve things for yourself, not just for the company. They had lots of team events, that sort of thing. So working there overall was very fun. It was very fun, and I really connected with our customer base because I was their target market at that point in time. So I could really connect with the girls and the women that were buying stuff in that store, and even I was really good at helping the men find stuff for their girlfriends or their daughters or their sisters or their moms or whoever. I was really good at being able to help them. And let me just fix this. Sorry, the sunlight is like coming directly in and messing up my shot. There we go. So yeah, I was really good at the job. I enjoyed the job. It was very satisfying. It was satisfying work, and I didn't have a problem with any of the rules that they had in place. But as the management started to change, I noticed that a lot of the younger managers who were younger than me at this point, when I was 20, there were a couple of managers that were either my age or younger than me that I don't know if they had a problem with me or if they just didn't like me. I don't know what it was. Nobody ever voiced anything to me about what their issue was, or if they had an issue even. Nobody said anything to me, but there were a couple of experiences that they just screwed up my entire experience of working there, and I didn't want to be there anymore after stuff like that. There were two types of shifts that you could have. You could do what was known as a call-in shift. So this is a shift that's not guaranteed, but you need to call them 2 hours before the shift is scheduled to start to see if they even need you. And then they'll let you know from there if they actually need you to come in or if you have the day off. Being on call sucks, and having on-call shifts was not fun. It was not enjoyable, especially because I had a second job and I was going to college at the time. So that could have been a problem on me and my scheduling, but it really sucked having call-in shifts when, you didn't feel good or you didn't want to work that day, or you had something that you needed to get done, or somebody invited you to something fun, or you know what I mean? Like, think about this. I was 17 to 20 years old. This is what I was going through. So what do you do when you're 17 to 20 years old? You want to go hang out with your friends. You want to go do stuff and like have fun with life. And most of the time, if my friends ask me to hang out, I have to say, well, maybe, like, I've got a call-in shift, I'll let you know. And then 2 hours before the shift, almost every single time they would say they needed me. So I would get called in, and of course it would be this big production, and half the time I would call in beforehand and I'd be like, I know it's my call-in shift, but sorry, I'm not coming. I didn't have the best work ethic back then, but that's how it was. And there was one time where I got called in for my call-in shift, and a lot of the time when you're doing call-in shifts, you're usually covering for people who called in sick. So I was covering at that point, at that particular night, for someone who had called in sick from the replen crew. So I'm a Pink girl. I don't particularly know the rules on the Victoria's Secret side. Like, I do, but I don't at the same time, because I don't cover shifts for anybody in Victoria's Secret. That's not my normal role. Or, you know, same with Replen. Like, I don't cover shifts for people in Replen usually on purpose, because I'm not a Replen person. I'm a Pink girl. I know the Pink rules inside and out. But when it comes to Replen, not so much. So I was covering for somebody on the Replen crew who had called in sick, and I didn't know it at the time. And usually how you could tell if you were covering for a shift for somebody else, particularly for our Pink girls, is if you walked into Pink and there were 2 girls there already. If there were 2 girls there already, you ask them what their shift was, and if they were closing with you, typically they would not schedule more than 2 girls in a night to close together and or to overlap shifts, because they didn't want the girls talking to each other, because they were all young. Like, that's all they did was stand there and like talk to each other, which I don't blame them, because I did it too, and I was like that. So I saw there were 2 girls in there already, and I'm like, oh, okay, I must be covering for somebody. I must be doing something else today, which covering for the Replen crew was a very, very common thing that happened. So I go on shift, I see these 2 girls in Pink. I didn't know that I wasn't going to be in Pink, so I went up to my manager. I remember her name, but we're not going to use her real name. We're going to call her Karen. We're going to call her Karen because she was the Karen of my life at that point. Prior to this event, her and I had a very good working relationship. She was wonderful to work with. I don't know what happened on this particular night, but she hated me out of nowhere. So I walk up to her. She's standing at the cash register. There's customers at the cash register. There's 2 other employees. There's her and there's me. I ask her, how can I help ya? Where do you have me today? She's my supervisor. She's my manager. She should either know or point me in the right direction. But she decided that night that she was going to scream at me in front of customers and other staff, to the point where the staff and the customers were uncomfortable. She screamed at me so loudly to get to the back room and find your Pink manager, in not so nice verbiage, that everybody was uncomfortable. Even I was uncomfortable. I was the one being yelled at, so not really a surprise there, but yeah. So everybody was uncomfortable. I was embarrassed. I was upset to the point where, at that point in time, I wasn't having any of her nonsense. So that's exactly what I did, is I had none of her nonsense. I went to the back and I found my Pink manager, and I just looked at her and I said, we need to talk before you put me anywhere today. So we go into the office and I tell her what happened. She's absolutely flabbergasted. She's just blown away that this woman, Karen, would speak to me that way, or to anybody that way, because normally this woman doesn't have a mean bone in her body. She was older than me though. She was one of the managers that was older than me, much older than me. She was probably in her late 30s, early 40s. And mind you, she was not mean either. She was not mean. She had never been mean at that point in time, ever. So of course I'm like, you know, my manager, my Pink manager, let's call her Kelsey. I said, Kelsey, what the heck did I do? She just screamed at me in front of a whole bunch of people out on the floor that saw that, both customers and our other staff. That's not okay. Like, I'm 20 years old. You can't just talk to me like that. Nobody can talk to anybody like that. That was extremely disrespectful, and now I don't want to come to work anymore. And she says to me, she was shocked. She was like, did she really do that? And I was like, yeah, go ask the other girls. So she has me kind of sit in the back room for a minute while she kind of goes to talk to the other girls at cash, Karen, to see what the heck is going on. Like, what happened? Why that particular event took place in front of everybody, much less, you know, at all. And she came back. She didn't say much about it. She just said, okay, I'm going to take care of it. It's not going to happen again. And we're going to get you placed for tonight to start your shift. So that's exactly what we did. I never heard anything about it after that. And I also never heard anything from this woman either, Karen. I never heard anything from her. I never heard an apology. I never heard hey, that was really unprofessional of me. I don't think of you badly or nothing. Like, no reassurance whatsoever. None. Absolutely no reassurance that our relationship was anything other than completely disastrous at that point. So I went on scared of her after that, and it was awkward as I was uncomfortable. I was scared of her. I didn't want to piss her off any more than she was already apparently pissed off at me. I don't know why. I think my cat's trying to get in. So that was a fun time in my life that I wish I knew then what I know now, because I would have looked at her and said, "Excuse me, that was really disrespectful. Can you please talk to me in the back?" No. I was so shy and such a pushover back then that I just let it happen. And I almost regret it, because something similar happened a few months later. Karen and this other girl, I don't even remember her real name, this other manager that started there, let's call her Adele. So Karen and Adele love each other. They absolutely adore each other, and they're both managers. Adele is younger than I am at this point. I'm pretty sure she was like 19 or something like that. Like, she was young. She was younger than me. And at first, Adele didn't have a problem with me. At first, Adele did not have a problem with me. At least she didn't voice that she had a problem with me. So I never thought that there was ever an issue or anything to worry about. So Adele never voiced that she ever had a problem with me. And at first, when she first started, she was very respectful. She was very kind. She was adorable. Like, she was so nice, and like, we had a great relationship, and I was always about, you know, trying to make sure that if anybody needed any kind of coverage or anything like that, that I was there, and making sure that anyone who needed help, like had help, I could offer that to them. You know what I mean? I was trying to be the helpful person that was needed, I guess. I don't know how to explain it other than that, but she didn't have a problem with me. She never had a problem, at least she didn't voice one. And her and Karen were tight. They were tight. Like, they just adored each other for some reason. And I never understood it. I don't think half the girls really understood it, but there was one night where I was doing a call-in shift, and I was, of course, covering for somebody in the replen crew, which they called, I'm pretty sure they called all of the girls that had call-in shifts that night to come in, because there were a lot of us in the back room. And again, I'm not on the replen crew, so I don't know their tips, their tricks, their secrets, anything like that. I am a pink girl. I know the pink rules. I know the pink idea of how things are supposed to run. I get the pink stuff, but the replen stuff, not so much, because I am not on the replen crew. So we're in the back and we're folding panties. So they tried to, I think there was like 8 of us at this tiny little table. And I don't know if you know how tall I am. You probably don't, but I'm about 5'7", 5'8". I'm a little taller than a lot of the girls that I work with that are like 16, 17. And the tables come up to just below my hips. They're very short tables. So when you sat down, they were like right, you know, at your chest type thing. But when you stood up, they were really short, especially on me. So I had to hunch over to fold these panties, and I'm just trying to fold these panties the way that they're asking me to. But of course, again, I'm not on the replen crew. I don't know their tips and tricks. I can't fold panties as fast as a replen crew person can, because they do it all day long. I don't. So hunched over, folding these panties with all these other girls, and my back starts to just absolutely ache. So to be a little bit more productive, I sat down so that I could continue folding these panties. Well, apparently that was a huge no-no, because this girl comes out of the back, this manager, she starts getting at us. Particularly me and this other girl who was, I'm pretty sure she was only 16 at the time, because she was still in high school. She starts getting at me and this girl, who are obviously talking while we're folding these panties. Like, what are we supposed to do? Sit there like a robot? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's not like we were not being productive. We were getting done everything that we were supposed to be getting done. And she starts losing it at me and this girl, and wouldn't let us respond. She wouldn't let us finish our sentences when we were answering her. She would just scream at us. And there was one point where I made a rebuttal and I was just trying to explain to her, hey, you know, this is what we were doing. You know, I apologize if we, you know, went against your policies or whatever. Like, I don't know exactly what I said, but I was trying to explain to her, look, we weren't trying to do anything wrong. We weren't trying to slack. We weren't trying to nothing. Like, we were just, you know, trying to do what you asked. And she just looked at both of us in front of all of these girls and all these other managers, including this other manager that I just told you about, Karen. She's looking at us and she goes, get out. Dead serious, get out. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like out of the back room, or like, what are you talking about? Out of the back room? Or what are you talking about? Like, where do you want us to get out to? And she goes, clock out, go home. I'm flabbergasted at this point. All because me and this girl were talking at this table along with like 6 other girls who were also talking. I just couldn't believe it. Like, I'm 20 years old at this point. I'm sick of being treated like a 5-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we were standing there doing nothing. We were actually working. Like, it's okay to work and have a conversation at the same time. Clearly she didn't know that. But anyways, yeah, so she kicks us out. And this poor girl, her parents aren't supposed to be coming until like 9:30 to come and get her. So I offered her a ride home, and I took her home, and she's like, no, I'm gonna quit. Like, I can't put up with that. And she's 16, and I'm sitting there going, how do you have the courage? Me, 21, how do you have the courage? And I don't. Pathetic. So that happened, and then there was a night where her and Karen were having some kind of like giggly time in the office. I don't know what the hell they were doing, but they were laughing their asses off. And the replan manager, I don't remember what her name was, who I'd also at this point never had a problem with until all this stuff started going down with Karen and this other manager. She walks out and she looks at me. She's got this look on her face that I've never seen before. It's not bad, not good, but almost like a I found out some information about you type thing. Great.
Wonder what they said.
So at this point, I'm just trying to keep my head down, do my work, and that's it. I'm just trying to keep a low profile, not do anything stupid, you know, do what I'm asked, show up on time, whatever. So one day I get called in on a call-in shift, but for an early shift, like one before the store opens, where you start replan before the store opens. Not a problem. I liked these ones because I could often get off work at a decent time, go home, have a nap, go to the gym, then go to my other job. And mind you, I was having problems at my other job too, with my managers treating me like so I get there and all is good. She puts me on this display and she asks me to get it ready, get it filled, you know, face it, make it look pretty, whatever, normal stuff. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll do what you want, boss. So I get this display ready, and then at one point she comes over to me and she goes, you're not going fast enough. And I'm like, well, I'm having a hard time finding all this product. She doesn't care. She says, I heard about what happened with you the other night, meaning when what's-her-face kicked me and this 16-year-old girl out. That's nice of her to have, you know, spread rumors about me everywhere. Super nice. I don't know what her problem was, but anyways, the replan manager for some reason just started to dislike me after that. She treated me like crap after that. She told me that I wasn't going fast enough, that I didn't belong on the replan crew, which I agreed with her because I was a pink girl. I was not a replan girl. I did not get hired to do replan. I got hired to be on the pink team. It's not my fault that somebody calls me in for a freaking call-in shift. So I'm pretty pissed, and I'm also scared of her now too, because she's constantly at my back like, you're not fast enough, you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, blah 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 blah. So-and-so was right about you, like all of this. And mind you, she was older than me, so I was trying to be respectful and like kind of take it on the chin, but I don't know why I took it on the chin. I don't know why I allowed people to walk all over me when I didn't do anything other than what I was asked. So needless to say, I didn't really enjoy being at work after that. Like for a long period of time after that, I really did not like being at work, especially with those two. Like with my pink manager, she was great. Loved working with her. Absolutely loved working with her. She was wonderful, super respectful. She didn't condescend to me. She didn't treat me like a child, which I don't know why everybody else seemed to think that that was okay to do, but they did. And yeah, she was really nice. So there was only about one person there that I actually really liked working with, and that was my direct manager, my pink manager. So that was cool. So there was another experience that I had that wasn't so good. It wasn't about the managers. It was actually about some of the customers that I'd had, particularly this one instance. Actually, I'll give you some backstory. Our stock room was not in behind the store, which you'll find a lot of the time at malls. They're not, because they are just too big to have behind a store without making the mechanics of the mall look funny, I guess. Anyways, so our stock room was not behind the store. So anytime anyone said, oh, can you go check in the back room? No, I couldn't check in the back room, because that would mean that I would have to leave the store, cross halfway across the mall, and open a door with a key that I did not have. So I would get a lot of very frustrated and angry customers that, wanted me to check in the back and thought that I just wasn't because I was lazy, or because I didn't want to do my job, or all this stuff. Some of the things that were said to me were just unbelievable. Like, unbelievable, some of the stuff that was said. There was one evening where I was working, and this elderly lady, she must have been in like her 60s, 70s. She was shopping for her granddaughter, and she wanted to get her granddaughter a pair of leggings that were black, and then the flap that was up at the stomach, I don't know what you would call that, the belt line, was pink and had these big gaudy brassy embellishments all over them, big jewels and gems glued all over them. Ugly as sin. But we couldn't find a size that she was confident that her granddaughter would fit. So she says to me, can you please go check out in the back room? And I just said to her, I would love to, but our back room is not on site. It's off site, meaning that it's not in the store or around the store. I have to cross the mall. She says to me, she's like, I don't want to offend you, dear, but could you get me someone who's a little bit older with a little bit more experience? At this point, again, I was one of the oldest people on the team, making the most money, as well as had the most experience, because we had quite a high turnover rate at that particular store. Gee, I wonder why. So I said to her, I'm the oldest on the team, and I've been on the team the longest. I've been here for 3 years, and I'm 20 years old. What can I help you with that's not something that someone else can help you with? Or what can I help you with? Like, what is it that someone else could be able to find for you that I can't? Is it that somebody else is going to be able to magically make the stockroom just grow legs and move behind the store? Like, for those of you who are shopping, don't ever say that to somebody. Don't ever say to somebody, I need to speak with someone who's older than you. Don't ever say to somebody, I need to speak with somebody with more experience. When it comes to especially just buying clothing, no. Do not disrespect people like that. So eventually she made her way up to the front desk, or the front cash register or whatever, when she found what she was looking for. I didn't talk to her after that because I was very angry with her. And I didn't want to get fired for saying something that I would regret. So she goes up to the front cash register, and of course they ask you, did anyone help you? I guess she told the girls at the cash register that I was very mean to her, and that I wouldn't help her find what she was looking for, and I was being very ignorant. All because I told her that our back room was not a back room, like we didn't have a stock room behind the store, that it was off-site, and that I would need permission, and I don't have anybody back there. I was being honest with her, and we were allowed to say that, because a lot of people ask that. When you're going into a shoe store, can you check in the back is a normal question, because that's where they keep all the rest of their shoes. So I just said to her, like, I was honest with her, and we were allowed to say that. The back room is off site. It's not behind the store. I would come back in a couple of days, and I'll let our team know that we need to take a look at that next time we're in the stock room. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. I was kind of pissed off, and I didn't really want to talk to her anymore, so I let her go. She goes up to cash, says that I'm being rude. I get pulled into the back by one of the managers, different manager than the other two that I told you about, or my pink manager. It was just somebody totally different who never disrespected me ever. She says to me, she goes, what was that lady's issue? What happened? And I told her, and she went, well, I'm glad that you kept your composure, because there's a lot of people here who probably wouldn't have. Needless to say, I didn't get in trouble, but I was surprised that I didn't for some reason or other. The third incident that happened, which was actually a little bit more serious and involves them putting my health at risk, there was a period of time where I had come down with a black bladder infection, which for those of you who don't know, when you get a bladder infection, you need to get it treated because it can turn into a kidney infection. It can actually work its way up your tubes and turn into a kidney infection. So I had a call-in shift the night that it was really bad. Like, I was peeing blood and I needed to go to the doctor. I might as well have worn a diaper. Like, that's how bad it was. I had a call-in shift and I called at the normal time, but I said to them, I said, look, I honestly feel really bad about this, but I need to go to the doctor. I have a bladder infection and I'm in a lot of pain. The response that I got, well, if there's nobody going to be covering your shift, then you have to come in. I don't have anybody to cover your shift.
You're on a call and you knew you had a call in today.
Really nice of them, right? So I go in. I must have gone to the bathroom like 14 times. And the bathroom in that particular store was all the way across the Victoria's Secret side of the store and over by the dressing rooms. And also, it was the same bathroom that the clients would use and the customers. So if I had to go to the bathroom, I had to wait for the customers to get out of the bathroom. And yeah, we had a staff bathroom, but you had to go into the back room. And of course, there's how many women that work at Victoria's Secret in one night? Like, there were so many of them, and so that bathroom was always being used, and I would have to wait either way. And when you have a bladder infection, waiting is not an option, especially when you get to the point where your bladder is so painful and inflamed by this whatever it is in your bladder that you're peeing blood. It cannot wait. So I had to go through an entire 5-hour shift. Instead of going to the doctor that night, I had to go through an entire 5-hour shift at Victoria's Secret because they couldn't put up with the fact that I needed to go to the doctor instead. And I didn't end up getting to see the doctor till the next afternoon because I had a full-time job. So I'd go home. I couldn't go to the doctor. I had nowhere to go. So I'd wake up, I went to my full-time job, and then I went to the doctor and finally got pills for it. But it was so awful. Like, when somebody tells you that your health doesn't matter and what's more important is that you come in and work a shift, especially when you're young, you know what I mean? It has an effect on people. Like, if you're a manager, I really hope that when somebody tells you that they have a bladder infection and that they're peeing blood, that you don't sit there and say to them, well, sorry, get your shift covered. That could kill somebody. Toxic shock could kill somebody, but change your tampon, it'll be fine. No. That was a fun experience. There were multiple occasions where the managers would forget to send me on break, and they did that with a lot of the girls. They would get so busy and tied up that they wouldn't let anybody know when their breaks were, and they wouldn't let anybody go on break. So we had girls that had to go to the bathroom, that were diabetic, that had, I've got hypoglycemia, I've had it since I was young, that need to eat food every couple of hours. And when you're working an 8-hour shift or even a 5-hour shift, you need a break, especially when you're on your feet walking around for hours. It's nice to have a break and have some food, and we were only allowed 15-minute breaks at a time, so any break that we could get was valuable, very valuable. Every minute counted. So there was a couple of times, multiple times, where, I would ask, it's been more than 4 hours. Do I get a break? Like, is my break coming up? Do I get a break? And then I would get reprimanded over the headset in front of all the other girls, asking why I always need to know when my break is and why I'm so distracted and why I never want to be on the floor working. It had nothing to do with that. It had absolutely nothing to do with me not wanting to work. It had to do with the fact that my blood sugar was dropping and I was feeling like I was going to pass out. It had nothing to do with me not wanting to be on the floor and do my job. It had to do with the fact that I'm a human being and I can only stand for so many hours before I need a break. Same with the other girls. I don't know. There are still some girls that worked there when I was working there that still work there now. And I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they made it through that, because quite frankly, I couldn't stand it there. It was awful to be there after a certain point. And once the verbal abuse started and once the, abuse of power started with the managers, it just became this roller coaster of up and down. I dreaded going to work every day. I couldn't stand going to work every day. It was awful when I had a call-in shift and I had a feeling that I was going to have to go in, and I didn't want to because I didn't want to get yelled at for something, and I didn't want to do a job that wasn't mine. Like, I didn't want to do the replan stuff anymore. anymore because apparently I was told many times that I wasn't good enough at it, even though I wasn't a replen girl, and I never was. I don't know, it wasn't a good experience. And unfortunately, I stayed there for 3 years because I had to, and I ended up quitting because of another psycho person in my life that kicked me out of my place that I lived in after 2 months of being there because I had a friend over in my space that I paid for, and I just couldn't handle working 2 jobs anymore, so I had to quit. And it was funny, when I quit, they were so nice to me. They were so empathetic. Oh my gosh, oh, that's so bad. Oh, you have a job waiting for you here when you come back. You take all the time you need. Yeah, well, here we are like 6 years later. I still haven't gone back, and I don't plan to. It's retail, and it's never going to be any different. Never, for anybody. Retail is retail. No matter whether or not you're working at Victoria's Secret or Walmart or Marc Jacobs, it doesn't matter, it's retail. And you're always going to experience the same things. You're always going to have abusive managers. I have never had a job in retail that I've ever had nice managers, ever. Because they are all on a power trip. And if you're a manager who's watching this and you're offended by this, probably because either 1, you're like that, or 2, you're not at all like that. Which, if you're the latter, thank God. Treat your employees with respect at all times. It doesn't matter how old they are or how frustrated you are. You treat people with respect regardless. They're doing a job. And unless they're completely disobeying you, or unless they rightfully deserve to be reprimanded, punished, or written up, don't disrespect people just because you're the manager. They look up to you. When you're nice to them, they're nice to you. When you're nice to them, they want to work hard for you. I don't know how many people need to be told that, but if you work for Victoria's Secret, whether you're a manager or not, be respectful. Don't ever make people feel like they can't come to work because they're scared. I really hope that you enjoyed this video because it's kind of weird, and I'm sorry if this wasn't what you expected, but this is just what happened. This was my experience. I wouldn't not recommend or recommend working there. It's your choice, whatever. If you really love them, I mean, I'm not gonna boycott them for the rest of my life. I still need bras. They still taught me a few good things. I still fold my underwear. But yeah, no, if you enjoyed this, subscribe, like this video, I mean, comment, whatever you need to do, communicate with me. Let me know. Let me know if you worked for Victoria's Secret. Sorry if you did and it didn't work out. And have a wonderful day. Bye!